Behind me are the scales of justice, which I thought was the perfect backdrop for today's video, where I'm going to talk about my worst financial decisions during the start of the COVID crisis. When the market fell over 30% in the shortest period of time, it was a super scary time for all Americans, including me. Even though I work in the industry, it was still a scary time. In fact, where I live, there was actually an earthquake the week after everybody got sent home. So not only did we have the start of COVID, but then we had the earthquake. So it was a very scary time. So let's go for a walk and I'll tell you about my worst mistake. Okay, so and be sure to stay to the end because I'm going to tell you how it turned out. But my worst mistake during the financial crisis was my daughter's college education. My oldest daughter was already in college, and her money was in a 529 account. And you know, I didn't have 5 to 7 years to let that money recover. So actually my worst mistake was something that took place in 2018 going into 2019. So in 2018, I made the decision to stay fully invested in my daughter's 529 account. Now she was 100% exposed to the stock market in her 529 account from the time she was born. So my wife and I's strategy when my daughter was born, we were fortunate enough that we were able to, and you know, it took a lot of sacrifice actually to make it happen. But we always knew that when our first child was born, the game plan was, boy, if we could pile into the 529 account, and for those that you don't know, a 529 account is a tax advantage savings account. So for the most part, you're putting after-tax dollars into the 529 account. Some states give you a small tax credit for your contributions, but it tends to be pretty tiny. So really think about it as putting in after-tax dollars, but then it grows tax-free. And if it's used for what's called qualified educational expenses, then you never pay tax on the gains of that account. So it's a really powerful account. And you know, doing what I do for a living, I told my wife, you know, the game plan is, let's put in what we think her first year of college is going to cost in 18 years. So when she's born, let's start saving up before we have kids so that we can do this. And in theory, if you can get an 8% return on your money, if you put in what you think college is going to cost, the full inexperience, in our case, we wanted to be able to pay my daughter's full education, including room and board and stuff like that. Now, everybody's different. This was the right decision on many fronts for us. Now, I paid my own way through college. So originally, I wanted my kids to have to pay at least 20%. I was thinking closer to 50%. My wife was thinking closer to 0%. And you know what they say, happy wife, happy life. So ultimately, my wife won that argument and has swayed me over to that. And you know, to the extent that you can help your kids do that, it's not like it was when I was younger. I was able to pay for college myself. In part, I had a military scholarship for most of that time, and then was able to pay for the rest out of pocket. And back then, somebody could work over the summer and save enough money to go to a good state college. Now it's a lot harder to do that. So getting back onto the video, game plan was put in what we thought would be a year's worth of expenses with inflation and everything. It's hard to estimate that, but we did the best we could. And the theory is it's going to double twice by the time my daughter turned 18. Right? At 8% a year, it takes 9 years to double. So when she was 9 years old, in theory, it should be double. And then when she's 18 years old and starting college, we'd have 4 times the amount of money that we would need. And so my oldest daughter was born in 2000, in May of 2000. So at her 9-year-old birthday, you know, in theory, the amount of money we put in her 529 was supposed to double. Guess what was going on in May of 2009, right? That was really close to the March 9 lows. So essentially, It hadn't grown at all since then. But remember, this video is about my biggest financial mistake, and that was not de-risking her account when she got to the point where she needed the money, where she was in college and I was taking money out. Now, why did I do that? Why at the end of 2018 did I say, you know what, I'm gonna keep all of her money in the stock market? The reason I did, and you know, this is often the case where you have good justification for what you do. Doesn't mean it's gonna turn out in your favor, but in my case, you know, working in the money management industry professionally, it was a very unique time, and I still tell people this. It may be the strongest economy that the United States has had since I've been in the business. Hopefully we see days like that again, where I called it the Goldilocks economy, right? It was not too hot like what we're dealing with now with inflation. It was not too hot, but it was not too cold. Inflation was in check. Interest rates were super low, historically very, very low at the end of 2018. And so I made the decision, boy, this is kind of a once in a lifetime situation. And the thing to remember is you can always get surprises, right? I think I got the macro call correctly, that the economy was doing very well. However, you know, I didn't see COVID coming. Now, you know, at the end of 2019, we did see COVID starting to spread into other countries, but you know, in the past it had always been curtailed. So anyways, going into the end of 2019, my wife convinced me to go 60-40 with my daughter's account. So 60% in the stock market and 40% in bonds. And you know, she gets the kudos for that, not me. But I get some kudos for agreeing to that. So my worst mistake was minimizing the likelihood of a non-economic, non-recession surprise, right? There could have been a war. There could have been any number of things that could have derailed that Goldilocks economy that I was so bullish on. So, you know, just to let you know, now this is in my personal account, not how I was managing things professionally, but you know, the way you protect yourselves from these scary periods of time is the asset allocation that you did years earlier. So the right question, if I was using a financial advisor and I used my firm, you know, and I didn't have to ask my firm this because I know the answer, you know, what were you doing to protect me and my daughter's 529 account when COVID happened and the market dropped 30%? The right answer was, well, what we're doing to protect you is what we did 3 or 4 years ago when your daughter was getting close to entering college, where we started to de-risk your portfolio. So long story short, what ended up happening, we ended up going 100% cash in my daughter's 529 account, right? She was already a year and a half into college. She had 2.5 years to go. She ended up taking a year off because of the pandemic, but I did not have time to write it out. And the 529 account had a purpose. The purpose of that 529 account was to educate my daughter. And I can share with you, earlier today, just before I started filming this video, I wrote the last check to her college. She graduates this coming June. And there was a little over $300 left in her account. So we judged pretty correctly. I'm glad that mistake really didn't hurt me that badly. You know, had we left that money in her account, it easily would have paid for a year of graduate school. But the purpose of this was to educate, you know, to pay for her undergrad school. And she's got a great education. She's going to do fine if she wants to go to graduate school. You've heard me say before, you know, there's loans for school, but there are no loans for retirement. So, you know, if she wants to go to grad school, she's got a great foundation to do that. My wife and I paid for our own grad schools, and she's going to be just fine as well. So I dodged a bullet there, frankly. So hopefully you found this interesting. That was my worst mistake going into the COVID crisis, financial mistake. I also was probably too scared when the COVID started. I think a lot of us were that way. I was kind of cowarding in my basement longer than I should have. So, but that's a topic for another day. If you like these Azul's worst mistakes videos, let me know in the comment. I'll share with you what my worst mistake was during the financial meltdown, 2008, 2009. So if you like this video, do leave me a comment. I do read the comments. Leave me a thumbs up. It really does help the algorithm find other people that this video can help. And as the kids say, thumbs for likes and subs for love. If you're enjoying this channel, consider subscribing. And until next time, I'm Azul, encouraging you to take full advantage of the youth of your senior years. Remember, you're only young once. Use your time wisely.